Like Brian said, my name is Julio Corredor, and I am the CEO and founder of Zooterra. So, as we all know, businesses are more interested than ever in sustainability. And we want to tell you about how we can use data to pursue sustainability in a smarter way and the work that we're doing as Zooterra around it. But first of all, let me ground everybody on the reasons why we wanted to do this work and really the environmental challenges that we're facing as a planet. There's two twin crises that we're facing around the world. First one is climate change, as you all know, which we increasingly see the effects of around the world. We recently in the United States had terrible fires in the West Coast. And every day we essentially are consuming the carbon budget that we have as a planet, that if we don't become carbon neutral by 2050, we will actually see the worst effects of climate change. The second environmental crisis is the loss of nature. And as probably many of you know, we have lost in the last 50 years more than 50% of global rainforests, as well as more than 70% of wildlife populations. So much so is the loss of nature that scientists now say that we are going through the sixth Earth mass extinction. And so, and that is in the context of nature creating about more than $100 trillion of value for humans every year. So these are very significant challenges that we face. Unfortunately, businesses have taken more action in the space. And so they know that they're doing this because it's the right thing to do, but there is also very strong incentives for companies to pursue sustainability. So let's talk about some of those incentives. First of all, performance. And it used to be the case that companies believed that taking a sustainability road would mean that their stock might not perform as well. But increasingly, there is studies that show that companies that focus on sustainability, their stocks do as well or better than those that are not. Secondly is expectations. Increasingly, stakeholders around the world expect companies to be sustainable, whether that's governments, clients, or consumers. That is increasingly something that is expected of companies. And so a recent study by New York University showed that in the United States, out of all consumer product sales growth, 50% was coming from sustainable products. And sustainable products are actually only about 15% of total products. So they're disproportionately contributing to growth and that revenue growth for companies. And then the third component is investments. So we're seeing that, and this is perhaps the most important one at this point, is that we're seeing that investors are increasingly using sustainability frameworks to decide what companies to invest in. And currently, $17 trillion out of $8 trillion in managed assets are being invested using sustainability standards. And that's growing very fast. And that means that a company that might not be following sustainability might not be considered for investment from some of the big investment houses. So the incentives are really there, and businesses really are moving in this direction. But unfortunately, we still have a very complex and fragmented sustainability world. So we see the fact that there is several standards and several organizations that are driving and setting the goals around what needs to be done among businesses, but they all have different agendas. They all have different emphases. Some of them might emphasize more climate change. Some of them might emphasize more forest protection or water protection. And so that becomes something that companies have to navigate and understand how do these different standards connect to each other and what is right for me to follow as a company. Secondly, once they decide these are the things that we want to prioritize as a company, let's say that they want to offset their carbon footprint, and maybe they have a high impact on forests, so they want to tackle their impact on forests. Then they want to find partners externally to help them do that. And that world is also very fragmented, perhaps even more, because there are hundreds or perhaps thousands of organizations that businesses can engage with to pursue those goals. And companies oftentimes don't have the time or the resources to navigate these worlds and find the right fit for them. So this can be inefficient, and it can be expensive as well, as these companies try to find the best fit for them from a sustainability standpoint. So that's where Zooterra comes in, and why we built Zooterra. We really wanted to address that need to become a place where all the sustainability standards and projects come together, so that companies can approach sustainability in a more efficient and smarter way. So we use computing power to bring together thousands of documents and records that help us then provide a structured interface with content around companies and their efforts on sustainability and their priorities and their strategies and tactics, but also to show thousands of projects that the companies can engage with and pursue and take action around their priorities. So the way that it works, as I mentioned, as we bring together all this information, we are structuring the data in buckets that are consistently relevant across these different standards and for multiple companies. So these buckets are climate and energy. So this speaks to companies' efforts around emissions reductions and energy consumption, and what are their efforts around going green with the energy sources that they are using in their operations. It's also, the second section around this is nature protection and resources use. So this is all around how they're using resources, how do they reduce use of resources, but also how do they recycle those that they do consume. Also very important is supply chains. Obviously, companies don't have full control over the raw materials and the sourcing that they have, but they can work with their supply chain to manage any issues in those supply chains to make sure that they're also sustainable. And then last but not least, this is also around how companies are taking action on forests and wildlife when they're having a direct impact in habitats around the world. Last but not least is community support. And this component is really important because 1.6 billion people around the world rely on resources from forests and natural habitats in some degree. And therefore, as we engage into doing more around protecting the environment, we need to make sure that we engage these communities in order to be successful. And so those are projects also that that's content also that we highlight. And the projects that then we feed back to companies once they've determined whether they want to focus on around these different areas, then the projects are aligned with the different areas so that they can easily see what projects are relevant to them and their priorities. From an interface perspective, it's fairly straightforward. And so what companies can do is they can look at an industry level and see what are the different areas that companies are focusing on across an industry, which gives them a picture of what are the focus areas for a particular industry, whether it's forest, whether it's water. And then once they decide from a tactics and strategies perspective where they want to focus on, then they can use the large set of projects that we have available to choose and engage with those that are most relevant to them. And then last but not least, because we're gathering all this information that we're indexing. We have content that is unique. So they can search for any sustainability term or project type and find information around what's actually happening around that particular area. This is information that they wouldn't be able to find on Google search because they're not indexing the documents and the information that we have access and that we've processed within the platform. So because of that, we're carving for ourselves a very unique space within the market where we, as I mentioned before, we want to become that place that is a one-stop shop for sustainability that brings together all these different standards and projects in one place. And so there is a lot of these different organizations that really show information focused from their point of view. So if we talk about CDP, they're going to show content around their reports on forests, on water, on climate change, but they're not going to show content relevant to SASB, which is also very important and relevant for companies. Likewise, for conservation organizations, they only will have their specific book of projects, whereas we have the opportunity to bring this all together for a holistic view. And that's what our team has been working on. We are already live with the platform, and we are currently piloting with a number of large, medium, and small-sized companies, as well as investors, to further refine the platform and further build the offering and the content that we provide to the business sector. And so, as Brian mentioned at the beginning, I have a deep business experience from corporate and different industries, but also from the non-for-profit side. But most importantly, a very strong passion for protecting nature and the environment. We also have a number of other team members with expertise on environmental protection, as well as analytics and data processing, which are obviously critical to the success of the platform. And we're also very excited about the several advisors that we have, which are providing input across a number of different relevant aspects to the business, whether it is customer acquisition, the customer experience, or the work on the ground that a lot of these organizations are doing. So this is a market that is in the early stages, but it's already believed to be a $600 million market, the sustainability data market. And that is supporting the $17 trillion of managed assets that are currently invested using sustainability criteria. But as this model continues to expand to more of that $88 trillion of managed assets, we expect that this market continues to grow to potentially as big as $3 billion as a data market. And we believe that this is extremely important, that the data continues to drive action in sustainability. And I'll give you a specific example of what we see in the market. Really that data transparency and availability has incredible power in terms of moving companies in the right direction. So as an example, Apple had, which is one of the leaders in sustainability, had goals to be carbon neutral by 2030. So as I mentioned earlier, as a world, we have to be carbon neutral by 2050. And they had set an ambitious target to be at carbon neutral by 2030. They also decided to use some money from a diversity fund put it into an impact accelerator, so that more of these sustainability initiatives could be supported externally. Well, that started to build the competition, and the knowledge that Apple was doing this really encouraged others to do better. And so we have Microsoft that has upped the ante and now has said that they're going to not only be carbon neutral by 2030, but they've also said that they're going to remove all historical carbon by 2050, all the historical carbon that they've emitted as a company. And not only that, but they've set up a $1 billion climate innovation fund. So this is the kind of data that we are making available in the platform, so that that is a way, so that it becomes a wave that lifts all boats and really drives the ambition of companies. And so that's very much our mission, is to organize the world's sustainability data, and by doing that, drive organizations to push harder and to do better in their environmental footprint, so that we can protect our planet. We are very much in alignment with the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals, and therefore we're really driving towards a similar direction to make sure that we're all aligned to prevent our planet from the worst consequences of environmental damage. And so we're very excited about our mission, and I'm happy to hear from you. You can go to our website at zooterra.com and sign up for our mailing list so that you get updates. You can also find the company profile and my profile on LinkedIn if you want to be in touch. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share a little bit more about Zooterra with you and around the sustainability world.